Well, it's been a total of 3 days since Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee has been released, and I gotta say, I'm having a lot of fun with these games. Sure, there are a lot of changes that were brought upon in this installment of the series, but all in all, I feel really happy about this fresh take of the Kanto region. And well, since I've recently just done a video talking about the strongest Pokemon that you might want to use during your Pokemon Let's Go playthrough, I thought, what about the Pokemon that people should just really stay away from in these games? And let me say, while I do seriously love the Kanto region, there are quite a few Pokemon that just aren't very good. I'm looking at you, Lickitung. So since the games are fresh in everyone's minds and people are still trying to figure out what Pokemon they want to use on their teams, here are what I believe to be the top 5 worst Pokemon to use in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. Now, I'm not specifically telling you guys to not use these Pokemon on your teams, but I'm just saying these 5 Pokemon are some that you might want to stay away from for various reasons. Whether it be stats, lack of move pool, or just being an overall Pokemon. And one last thing I gotta mention, I'm specifically going to be talking about Pokemon's use for in-game purposes, not any kind of competitive battling, although most of these Pokemon are pretty bad for that scene as well. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. And with that being said, let's get started. When it comes to early encounter Pokemon, I think we all know it's pretty infamous for having some of the weakest Pokemon to date in the series. And probably the most notable of these Pokemon has to be the early bug Pokemon, and for this generation it was Beedrill and Butterfree. Now don't get me wrong, I love these Pokemon and have actually tried both of them out during my Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green runs, so I can speak from experience when I say please avoid using these Pokemon. And sure, for Beedrill specifically, it does have the ability to Mega Evolve, but unfortunately you can't actually do it until the end of the game, so I want to exclude talking about it since this video is really about Pokemon to avoid during your playthrough. And yeah, during a playthrough without Megas, these two Pokemon just suck. In Generation 7, these two Pokemon both get some decent stat buffs, and move-wise, there's also some good things to talk about as well, such as Bug Buzz and Quiver Dance for Butterfree, while Beedrill gets Poison Jab and Outrage, which is pretty interesting. But really, for a 3-stage evolution, base 395 stats all around really doesn't seem like much. I mean, look at Charizard or Talonflame for reference, it's really not that good. Even Pokemon like Vivillon, which is like these two, a early bug Pokemon, has better and more stats all around. And then there's the weaknesses it has, like the 4 times weakness to Rock, 2 times weakness to Fire, Electric, Ice, and Psychic, which are all typings used in either a gym or an Elite 4 member. Maybe if the stats were a bit better and Beedrill could actually Mega Evolve in-game, I could see why it could be beneficial, but alas, that is not the case. Speaking of early encounter Pokemon, another really bad one to appear in the Kanto region has to be everyone's favorite Fat Rat, Raticate. This Pokemon from the start is actually pretty good once you evolve Rattata right away. Hyper Fang being base 80 power is actually a very good move early on, and since you can get Raticate at level 20, these stats are actually strong in the early game. But unfortunately, it's only good early on, cause once you get deeper into the game, the other Pokemon really start to catch up to Raticate and eventually even pass it. Again, these stats are great early on, but with only its speed getting up close to the hundreds, it's really not good to warrant a permanent spot on your team. 81 attack would be good on a Pokemon that has better defenses, but since Raticate only has 70 and 60 defenses respectively, plus 55 HP to back it up, it's really not good enough. And it gets even worse for Raticate if you take into account its Alolan form, which instead of having like a couple of pretty decent stats, it instead goes for a more balanced kind of Pokemon. This would be okay if the base stat totals were a bit better, but since it's actually pretty bad, Raticate just ends up worse off. Honestly, if you're looking for a normal type Pokemon to add to your team, you might as well just get yourself a Snorlax. It's a much better option. I have to admit, the next Pokemon on this list is a bit of a heartbreaking one for me to talk about, but I gotta say, Farfetch'd isn't really that good of a Pokemon. Design-wise, this thing is great in my opinion. Sure, it may just be a duck holding a leek on the surface, but the origin actually comes from a Japanese saying that translates to "a duck comes bearing green onions," meaning something surprising but convenient. But unfortunately, having a good backstory doesn't always translate to a Pokemon being good in battle. And that can't be more truer of a statement than for Farfetch'd. I mean, pre-Generation 7, look at these stats. Not one goes over 70, which would be fine if it was a pre-evolution, but considering this is the only Pokemon in its line, that's pretty bad. And even Game Freak recognized this issue by finally giving Farfetch'd a decent buff in the Sun and Moon games, but base 90 attack sure is pretty good on its own, but that's it. Nothing else got buffed. And sure, it gets good moves to complement its attack like Brave Bird and Swords Dance, but with HP and defenses like this, do you really want to be losing HP? Oh, but wait, in Let's Go, it doesn't even get Brave Bird. Yay. But to be fair, it does get Sky Attack to replace it, which did get a buff in these games, but you have to waste an entire turn to use it, so there's that. But no matter what, it doesn't really matter if you have good moves on a Pokemon if the stats aren't good enough to even make use of it. One cannot succeed without the other. And to make matters even worse, held items aren't a thing in these games either, so Farfetch'd can't even use the leak to its advantage. It's just not a good Pokemon. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee removed a lot of important mechanics in the games, from held items, moves, wild battles, to even abilities. And I have to say, a Pokemon that probably suffered the most from this has to be Ditto, because its ability Imposter made it so that it can automatically change into the opposing Pokemon that is facing it. Ditto didn't have to worry about its piss poor stats or lack of move pool, it can just change on sight. But since abilities are taken out of the game, Ditto now has to try to last at least one turn before it can transform. And with stats that go 48 across the board, it's going to be very difficult to try to live a hit. Plus, personally for me, I think I would rather just build a good team that covers each other's weaknesses rather than just having a Pokemon that can copy. But that's just me. I'm sure you can probably make it work if you really want a Ditto, but for me personally, I would just stay away from this Pokemon. And finally, coming in at the #1 spot, the worst, and I mean worst Pokemon in Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee has to be Parasect. I know I put this Pokemon in my underrated list, but that was purely because of its design and backstory. I just love how they implemented the whole zombie kind of thing by making Parasect's origin based on a fungus that slowly infects and takes control of its host. It's pretty damn cool, and I can never take that away from it. But again, like Farfetch'd, just because it has an awesome basis of origin doesn't mean that it should be a Pokemon you want to use on your team, at least if you want things to be easy for you. I say this because one, it has probably the worst dual typing in all of Pokemon, being Grass and Bug. It's not that these two typings are bad or anything, it's just that they have a lot of weaknesses together, and two of them, being Flying and Fire, are quad effective against Parasect. And stat-wise, it's not the greatest either. It's not bad per se with 95 attack and 80 defenses, but it's not good enough to really make up for the weaknesses. At least it does get X-Scissor, but both Synthesis and Seed Bomb were taken out of its move pool. So it no longer gets heals, and it doesn't have a physical grass type move. So its only use for having grass is the status ailments. Really not worth it. There's honestly so many better options for a grass or bug Pokemon that Parasect is kind of irrelevant. There's Pinsir, Scyther, Venusaur, Tangela, Vileplume. I'd say literally any bug or grass type Pokemon in these games is better than Parasect. So for me, the weaknesses, stats, and lack of a physical grass type move just proves that this Pokemon is not worth the pain. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and let me know in the comments section below. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and become an Eryizo today. If you want to check out the previous video I did, be sure to click the annotation on the left. If you want to see more Pokemon Let's Go videos, click the other annotation on the right. And with that being said, I will see you guys next time.